Welcome to another episode of Ask Forza. We wanted to talk about something that is about to come into full swing, which is yearling inspections. The first yearling sale of this season is going to be July 12th, I believe, at Phasing Tipton. It's either the 11th or the 12th. You can look it up online at Phasing Tipton's website. But we wanted to touch on yearling inspections and what to look for in yearlings. And what we look for in yearlings to kind of help some of you out who might be going to the yearling sales, or if you'd like help at the yearling sales, we're happy to help you out. We've kind of had a pretty good season thus far this year with a filly who's going to be running at Ascot next week, who's bought for $50,000. A pinhook filly that was bought for 60, sold for €160. And then another filly who was in the Kentucky Oaks. So we want to talk about different things, and actually another horse that's running, potentially he was in a grade 1 at Belmont last week. He scratched. He's potentially going to Royal Ascot as well. He was another yearling selection. So lots of stakes horses out of yearling sales with not a whole lot of money put in. The most expensive one of the bunch was $210. The others were $50,000, $60,000, and $130,000. So wanted to get into how to find good graded stakes horses at yearling sales and kind of the things that we look for. So Dominique, what you guys might not know, Dominique almost looks at every yearling in a sale. I'm the lazy one. I just look at a couple. So she would be the best one to start this off and talk about what she looks for in finding some of these athletes and what she sees first before she decides, is this one we need to look at, or is this one we don't need to look at a second time? So honey, what do you look for at these sales?
So I personally don't even look at the pedigree or look at the sales book until after I've seen the actual horse. To me, you can have the best pedigree on the planet, but if I go and look at you and you're uncoordinated, you're not an athlete, it doesn't matter who you're by, who you're out of, who your family is. You have to have an athlete. To me, the movement of the horse is really important. Seeing a really strong frame, good shoulder, good hip, something they can develop into is important. A lot of people focus on the legs of a horse, conformation. When I initially started, from vet school, they teach you about carpus valgus, sickle hock, etc. But really, at the end of the day, I've learned that the legs are the least important factor. And we can explain that a little bit more. But focusing on the athlete, it is, to me, the key. And the reason that I look at every horse in the sale is because you can see trends. You can see, okay, most of the Omaha beaches look like this. You get a feel for the good horses that stallion is throwing and when one is atypical. So that's why I look at every horse in the sale. The other thing that's nice year to year is you can see certain families. So you can follow certain dams, see what they throw, see the family. So it's the physical. At the end of the day, to me, it's the physical. The rest comes later.
So when you see a good physical, what are some of the things that you're looking for? Like when you say athlete, what does athlete mean to you?
To me, it means how they move. Not having a lot of wasted action. Obviously these horses have to run fast, they have to stay sound, and we're just looking at a very small picture by having them pulled out. We have them walk in front of us, so it's not a lot of information, but it is just making sure that they push off on that hind leg. Some of them, especially the May and the June foals, I love them because you can see what they can develop into. At the time you look at them, they might be a little underdeveloped, obviously, compared to your January horses. But as long as they have the framework there, you kind of have to use your imagination to see what they're going to develop into. But it comes down to their action, their motion, a lot of wasted action, a lot of kind of fishtailing I'm not really in love with. I like them to be able to plant, push off, stretch out with those front legs, because to me that's going to be more indicative of how they move on the track.
So as Dominique pointed out and what we kind of talked about, Dominique goes through first and she'll cull off a substantial portion, and then she'll send me what I then need to look at for second looks to where we're trying to make final decisions on, hey, these are horses that fit this client, or these are horses that fit that client, or these are horses that we want, or these are horses that we don't want at all. And so to go back on athlete, what I look at, and people explain it different ways. And if you have questions from this video, please DM me. You can email me. I'm happy to talk you further on what to look for in yearlings and how this whole process actually works. I think in terms of finding great race horses, the biggest opportunity is in yearlings. When you go to the 2-year-old sales, you're paying a lot more. So you can actually get better horses for better prices at yearling sales if you're, as Dominique said, not so focused on pedigree and more looking for athletes. So when I say athlete, I'm looking for how a horse moves through space. It's the exact same as me looking on a racetrack. I want to see how efficiently that horse moves through the environment and moves through what they're being asked to do. So a big thing for me, and you'll see some guys will talk about overstride. To me, that's more of a European thing. You're trying to look for how far the horse can stretch out. In America, it's not as big of an issue. We're looking for power, we're looking for speed, we're looking for acceleration. My first go-to is I want to see the horse stand up, and I want to see, does the shoulder angle and the hip angle match? I'm looking for complete symmetry in this athlete, right? You want to look at it like a painting. And you know, we've got this beautiful tiger painting behind us, one of my favorites. But does everything look like it fits together, or is there something glaring that stands out, right? So if you throw a splotch of blue paint on here, well, all of a sudden the thing that stands out is the blue paint. There's things with the yearlings that if, you know, the back is too long, well, that stands out. If it's got a great shoulder and a great hip, but it looks like a limousine, that's a flaw. I'm trying to look for things that fit together. And then if there's something that looks like it doesn't fit together, to me, that's not symmetry, it's not balance.
I would agree. And usually when you have an imbalance, just say the example of the long back, you see that in their movement. It's interesting, especially with backs, is because sometimes you'll pull the horse out, you'll say, he looks great, you'll have them walk, and then you see the fishtailing, you see that inefficiency in the back, then you stand them up again and say, oh, there it is. So it's often a combination of seeing how they move and they stand. So to me, the athleticism goes with a balanced horse. The other thing, while again, legs are a bit secondary to me compared to balance and athleticism, you do have to consider, you know, are they going to hold up to training? So obviously a very light boned horse I'm not very partial to, just because knowing they have to train over a dirt track, I am a little bit worried about soundness with a very light boned horse, especially one that's a bit heavier muscled, heavier over the shoulder and back, and then you can see that imbalance of the lighter leg with the heavier body. Not a fan of that. But it's interesting because once you start going to the November Night of the Stars sale and you see these beautiful stakes horses, these fillies that have won everything, you have them walk at you and you're like, oh my God, I've got a leg going 3 different directions. And that's when I learned the legs, you have to live with certain things, but there's no perfectly straight horse that a lot of people try to buy.
So we were hoping to kind of do a overview of yearling inspections. This is obviously 8.5 minutes in and we have so much more to talk about. So we are going to do subsequent videos, but I'm going to leave you with this just to start, right? So we talked about balance, we talked about a horse moving through space. What I find personally, one of the go-tos that I look at is acceleration off the walk. So I like horses to walk up to me, stand still, and I want to see within those first 2 to 3 strides, how quick can they fall into their action of efficiency. So there, and that goes the same when they come off the turn. Once they go down and they turn around and they come back at you, obviously they slow when they turn. So I want to see how quickly they can get their hind legs up underneath them and how well they can power off that walk. So one horse we threw out earlier who was in a grade 1 last week at Belmont, he was a scratched horse called New York Thunder, and you can look him up. He's undefeated 3 races in a row. He was a horse that was a rocket ship when I saw him at the sales. He was a cribber, but this horse was smaller, hugely athletic, and his acceleration off the walk from a push was massive. And if you go back in his races and you look at the times this horse puts up, he's gone 21, 43 and change, 55. He has so much speed in him because of that acceleration off the hind leg. That was very evident as a yearling, that he's the type of horse that I'll look at and see how quick can these horses accelerate. And then we're going to talk about this in subsequent videos, because he was very much, we saw him, we wrote down 2-year-old sprinter type pinhook. They did not pinhook him, they decided to race him. But basically he had that frame to be very precocious, extremely fast, and that's very much what he is. So we're going to dig into the bones of different types of horses to look at yearling sales, but we did want to just kind of touch on a couple things, and we will probably have to do now that we realize,
especially since you brought up cribbing, now that goes into stall walking, mental aspect, not just the physical. So yeah, there's a whole nother
probably 4 to 5 more videos. So anyway, stay tuned. This is video 1. We will let you know when there are more. We're going to keep rolling these yearling ones out as we get closer to these sales. So thanks for watching.